So, the mulatto male actually meets the character in the story because for some reason he's bathing naked in a waterfall next to her camp. Okay? Alright, whatever. Okay, so he's bathing naked. So, what is this mulatto guy doing here? How did he get here? Okay, he came with the slave traders, right? So, he came to trade slaves, right? So, what is his intention? No. The mulatto man did not come to trade slaves. He came to bury his mother in her homeland. He explains that his mother raised him, teaching him his original language, teaching him all about the culture of the people that he was taken from. And the mother made him promise that when she died, he would bring her back home and bury her in her homeland. And this is why he's here.
So this happens to be the secret door or the trap door where the selected ladies were taken out to the governor's bedroom. So what happened was that the ladies, some of them were found pregnant right in here. Those who got pregnant, they had a place that they kept them until they delivered. So after delivery, they have some specific years. You have to separate the kids from the mothers. Now send the mothers back to the dining to be sold out. So those kids are the mixed race kids. Of what we're talking about, the mulattoes. Yeah. So that's the reason why we're looking at the introduction of the European culture in the country of Ghana in terms of the name aspect of it and other aspect of the European culture right here.
This is probably the most inaccurate part of this film. And in a film with so much inaccuracies, I have to use the word probably, okay? Because there is a lot, okay? What are the mulattoes? When the white man would rape an African woman, and this is in the documentary that I did from my last trip to Ghana, where we actually go to the slave dungeons and we learn the truth of the slave trade. When the Portuguese and the white slave traders would rape the slave women, they would only take them out of the slave dungeons for as long as was needed to birth the child and nurse the child. And after this, the child was taken from the woman and the woman was sent back into the slave dungeons to be sold away to slave trade. 100% of the time. No woman, no African woman raped who had given birth to one of the slave master's children were allowed to stay with the children. Matter of fact, she was only taken out of the slave dungeons because the conditions in the slave dungeons was so disgusting and so filthy, with the slave dungeons being full of urine and feces and vomits, okay, that the baby could not have possibly survived in these conditions. And the whites would use the mulattoes to send into the towns to help infiltrate the African tribes, okay? So, no mulatto child was allowed to stay with his mother, number one. Number two, the whole purpose of slavery was to break them from their culture, break them from their language, break them from everything they know and put them in a place that is completely separate from where they come from. Why? Because the European man could not speak these languages. So it was forbidden for the Africans to speak their language around the Europeans. Okay? So now, if one of us had written this film who had actually taken the time to do the research on the stories they were using for profit, okay, vis-a-vis someone not interested in another form of exploiting our people, these things would have been written into the story and it would have made for a much, much stronger story. But instead, you have a story where a white man rapes a black woman and then he allows the black woman to stay with her child and to raise her child, teaching him the original African language, teaching him about his original culture, and also this slave woman having so much freedom that she's actually allowed to be brought back to where she was kidnapped and taken from to be ceremonially buried. And of course, you never see the mother, you never actually see this burial happen at any time in the film. This is just something that was written. And it completely goes against the true events that the story is inspired, quote unquote, by, okay? So at this point, we're not even halfway through the film, and the inaccuracies are piling up like a big, giant pile of crap. But wait, it gets worse, okay? It gets a lot worse than the Pocahontas love story that's developing, okay? Finally, after these two African tribes have been slaughtering and killing and going at each other's necks, okay? The homie tribe finally meets the slave traders who are instituting the whole thing, okay? The oil tribe, Click Clack, has killed the homie warriors with guns that were sold to them by the white slave traders in exchange for the slaves, okay? And these things are mentioned, but the emphasis, what is the emphasis? Well, they finally meet the white slave traders, the one who is starting the whole conflict, the one who is creating this whole dynamic, the one who brought slave trading and weapons and funding to West Africa. And how does this interaction go? He is welcomed with open arms. The king hugs him, embraces him, sits him in a seat right next to the king's throne. And what do? They have a whole entire ceremony in presentation for the white slave traders. What? Is this not the man that is responsible for the murders and killings that is happening all over West Africa? Is this not the man that is selling the guns all over West Africa? Is this not the man who are sending Africans to capture other Africans to take completely away from the continent? And when you finally meet the man who is responsible for these wars that are crippling the whole entire region, you sit him right next to the throne and you have a presentation for him? Matter of fact, the young girls are made to crawl through thorn bushes to prove their tenacity and their strength for the white slave traders. And this becomes less about, hey, why are you funding and supporting war in our region, in our country? And it becomes more about, we can be better slave traders than the oil tribe. That's right. The oil tribe and the Dahomey tribe are competing to get the contract for capturing slaves. And the main theme of the movie is who can be the strongest warriors so that they can be hired by the Portuguese to capture slaves. Yes, it gets worse. Now, remember what I said. All of these things are alluded to. They have written in the script, hey, these white men are giving the guns to the tribes that's killing us. Hey, we need to stop the slave trade. We need to get out of this slave trade. It is not good. There are other things that we can sell in order to make money, okay? But it is only alluded to. When the white man actually sits down and talks to the king tells him any talks of us getting out of the slave trade is completely and totally false. First of all, let's go over the dynamic of this film, because as I'm breaking down this film, if anybody is saying, hey, you're being too nitpicky, understand that I am a screenwriter, a film writer. So as I said, with all of my movie reviews will be based from the point of view of a screenwriter, someone who writes the film in the details of every film. So I know that every single detail of the film is important, okay? Number one, the Portuguese are allowed to walk freely throughout the Dahomey camp. Matter of fact, the mulatto Portuguese actually goes into the private women training area and has a full conversation with the women soldiers, and he is not approached by anyone. No guards, no one. No one comes to him and say, hey, you shouldn't be back here. No, he's allowed to have a full conversation. He even sets a meeting date with one of the warrior girls. Number two, the other Portuguese slave trader is allowed to have a full conversation with the king's wife, in which the king's wife tells the Portuguese slave trader all of the personal business of the king. Hey, the king has been talking to the general about no longer doing slave trade with you. So I just wanted you to know, Mr. Portuguese man, that the king is talking about canceling the slave trader. He was talking to her about, she's having a full conversation with the slave trader. who his people has already raped one of the women from your tribe and gave birth to a child who is now freely walking around the camp, flirting and setting meeting dates with one of your warriors, okay? And let us add that the whole vow of being a Dahomey tribe is celibacy. They are sworn off from men. They are celibate. So you have Portuguese slave traders who are known for raping thousands and thousands of women, walking freely throughout your camp of celibate warrior women with no guards and no one even addressing this. A lot of holes in this plot. And again, when this is brought to the king that, hey, your wife told me that you want to stop the slave trade, the king says this is absolutely positively false. And the white man says, I know it is because your kingdom has been made rich off of our slave trade. You couldn't do without it. So, an African writing this would not have written this because it makes our people look weak and disgusting. It makes our people look self-serving. If it's one thing you will hear the enemies of our people saying is that we're too soft, we're too loving, we're too kind, we're too compassionate, we're too merciful. We let people run us over. And the reason why, you'll see this all in Hidden Colors, I think it's 4 or 5. There's a whole Hidden Colors, the last one. And the whole Hidden Colors is about African people are too soft and too loving and too kind. And that is why the world runs us over, because we haven't learned to stand up for ourselves. But in this movie, our people are presented as selfish, self-serving, and spineless. And the fact that our people can watch this movie like, man, that was a great movie. It shows the lack of racial pride that we have that is unprecedented in such levels among any other race on the face of this planet. We are the only race that can sit there and watch a movie that completely undermines and discredits and destroys the image of our people and say, wow, great movie. It is a highlight to a bigger problem. But that is in another scene. Let us continue with the mulatto man. Right now, he has just scheduled a meeting with one of the celibate warrior girls who are supposed to have sworn off men as a sign of her loyalty to her tribe, which she is continually yelling about throughout the whole film. So now, the little 13-year-old girl who simply says in the script that she's 19, who was supposed to be played by Lupita Nyong'o, okay, she has now met up with the Portuguese slave trader. That's right, she has completely left the camp, completely left, okay, and now she has met up with the slave trader, okay, and now they're having a conversation, and this is looking like one of those Pocahontas John Smith moments, okay, and from this Portuguese guy, she takes his knife, okay? She takes his knife. It's her keepsake. She takes a knife. He also reveals that, hey, the Oyo tribe says that they're gathering other African nations that are working for us. I am the slave trader. That are working for us. I am the slave trader. And they're coming to get you guys. So this highlights that the white slave traders are actually at the center of everything. Every African tribe that is going to war all over the continent are all working for the same white people. The same white people. And in the earlier scene, where the Dahomey tribe walks into the white encampment, where all of these people are here who are literally funding, okay, and inciting this whole entire central conflict of the theme, and the only thing the black people do is break out into a big fight in the middle of the white man's camp, and the white man just stand there watching them fight each other. Let me help you understand. In this film, the white man is employing the Oyo tribe, and when the Oyo tribe is captured by the Dahomey tribe and sold to the white man, they're buying the same Oyo people as slaves. The Dahomey tribe is working for the white Europeans, And if they get captured by the Oyo tribe and sold to the white slave owners are buying the same Dahomey tribe as slaves. Yet this connection is never made. It is never made at any point throughout the film except in script. And when it is made in script, when Viola Davis says it, in the next scene, it is immediately shot down by the king. Screenwriting. So if she had said it and this had been left to sit, this would become connections that even the audience begins to make. But in the next scene after she mentions this, it is immediately shot down. No, we're not doing anything with slave trade. That's just who we are. And this is something to make the African king look weak and self-serving. This is something to make the African people look weak and self-serving. Because when the Europeans come, the women are performing for them. The women warrior. Now listen, I have no problem with empowering our women. That is African culture. African culture is empowering our women. So when it comes to our women as compared to African men, they are strong, they are warriors, they are killers, they are God of War Kratos, slaughtering, 3-hit, 4-hit, 5-hit combinations, cut the throat, slice the kidneys, cut the brain. They are vicious, fierce warriors. But when the white man comes to the camp, they all become dancers and street performers. The same women who are presented throughout the whole film as fierce and strong and vibrant and warriors become street performers when the white slave owners come. Now, I am reviewing this film from the perspective of a screenwriter. So what is this saying to the audience? When a screenwriter writes a film, it's not only about what's said, it's about what's implied, what is not said. So this is an implication of who has the dominance over the people. As I said before, whenever the Dahomey tribe goes into the white camp, they don't even address the white people, they don't attack the white people at all. It is always, hey, let's look for the black people that's here and let's fight with them. So it is presenting this narrative of who truly has the domination and control over even the fiercest of warriors in Africa. Context.
But we spend so much time emulating them that we gotta learn who we are again. Because it's not who we've been. Stop the pretending, stop trying to bend it. Stop the division, start with the mending. And all they tell us about where we come from is how we sold our own people away. They're pressing us a war and look at how they hang it over us and use that to make our children hate their race. Let's never make the same mistake. Let's lead a war to the warmongers. Why feed the hatred with more hatred in your own hunger? Saying comfort, take the past and learn and grow from it. And maybe we can help the people in our home country. Hey, let's lead a war to the warmongers. Why feed the hatred with more hatred in your own hunger? Saying comfort, take the past and learn and grow from it. And maybe we can help the people in our home country.